Welcome in, everyone, to rFactor 2 here at Apex Online Racing. My name is Curtis Kenyon. I have Nino with me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be back with Curtis here, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that you pronounced my name Nino properly.
Yeah, well, I mean,
If
I
not,
can when I want to, but sometimes I don't want
yeah.
to because it's funnier. But yeah, so we're actually joining in here with qualifying one, coming in on the tail end because we had a bunch of back of grids and a few people weren't able to make it today. So 15 people on the server, with 3 of those people needing to do a back of grid. So penalties and things like that from other races and things. And the reason why we have a little bit of absences is just due to time constraints and obligations in other places, unfortunately, kind of clashed today. And that happens from time to time, but should be a halfway decent race here around Spa. Right now, your leader, Craig Baxter, with his teammate Scott Davison out front, and it looks like it's going to be a all Defiance 1-2. We got Sabre in third with Sam Carpenter. Kind of expected that. Fred Bodden makes his return in a Vulcan car. He's actually driving Brandon O'Henlon's car, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, should be a good race all around. A couple of notables. Jurand Kuzmirchek, his first race here, if I'm not mistaken, managing to get into the top 10. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty impressive from him, considering the first race. Obviously, Spa is a track for everybody. I think it's. I wouldn't speak for the drivers, but I would presume it's many people's favorite. Just because of this in general. I don't know about rFactor, but in general, it's a track that in terms of like the speed that you take throughout the track, it's just a different feeling compared to other tracks.
it,
But I know, yeah,
like it's an odd one because you have to have the setup just right. You have to be able to hit all the speeds and things, but you do have to. You kind of have to. How do I put this? You have to have a certain balance in the car. If you don't have that balance, the track just bites you. And a lot of people, at least in this series, actually don't like this track. Not because of the track itself, but because the setup is just so tough to get. But it does produce some fantastic racing. It just comes down to trust in the drivers and trust in the people around you. As we watch Sam Carpenter nab a second place, absolutely nabbed that from Scott Davison. A fantastic run there, a 143.2, only 0.3 seconds off the lead on a track that is this large. You expect it to be a little farther out, but not this time, and this is kind of indicative of the whole season, really. We saw some very close racing in qualifying 1. Now we move into qualifying 2, where things get really serious. That's going to eliminate Stefan Keimberger and Philip Schiff, the Infinix Racing driver, not able to get into the top 10. So we move into the shootout round, as I like to call it. Got a few minutes to lay down the fastest lap, and usually with a track this long, we'll probably get maybe 3 laps in, so you really got to bring out your best.
yeah, you definitely want to be out there at the ideal time, just to avoid other cars. You definitely don't want to be stuck in between traffic. Just to lay down a lap time as early as possible, just to know where what your targets are, for the rest of the session, comparable to the other drivers.
So the session just barely started 2 seconds ago, and the green light is given at the end of the pit straight. A fantastic camera angle we have here. It's just the way that Spa is and the way that rFactor sort of senses the cameras. Sam Carpenter is the first one out on track, so we'll be kind of following him around, and it looks like Liam Mengen was behind him. So the North-South squad and Sabre senior drivers looking to lay down that fast lap as quick as possible. Earlier today, the drivers were saying that the setups had to be tweaked quite a bit. So setup very important around here, Nino.
Oh yeah, definitely. You really have to, in terms of the setup, you really want to get the most out of your car in terms of speed. Like very few slow corners around Spa. So it's very much, obviously, in terms of everything around the car needs to be really set up mostly for speed. Very much low downforce throughout, and so set up very cool. It would maybe comparable to maybe other slow tracks. You would think maybe not as important, but no, trust me, it is very important.
I have found actually in my experience that a Silverstone-like setup works very well around here. It's not quite as fast, so you have to work the wings a little bit and slight tweaks to the suspension to make sure you still have the grip that you need to fling yourself around some of these corners. As we're watching Sam Carpenter do just that. While we're here, let's go ahead and go on board with Sam as he's just about to cross the start-finish line, heading into La Source. Very slow corner. You can see him grab second gear as he enters. A little bit of a lockup, but I think he'll be okay. Head up into the famous Urouge Radion sequence. See if he can nail this. Gotta nail it perfect. Otherwise, it'll just fling it to the outside. And nail it he does. That was smooth. Down the Kemmel Straight. Probably the fastest straight. Easily the fastest straight on this track. And one of the fastest in this whole series. Oh, gets all crossed up through Lacombe. Manages to save it and make it through Malmedy. But through Brussels, he's got to be very careful. Off camber here. Grabs fourth gear. Very ginger on the throttle. Grabs fifth, and he's still sideways. Yeah, he just bails on the lap. I don't blame him for that. He just got all crossed up there. That right there, that's some of the most exciting driving we've seen from Sam all year.
Yeah, you could definitely see he was on the limit. So many corners, and he went beyond it. Clearly, he'd set a very fast first sector before he kind of lost the rear end there and had to abort out, which is a shame for him because that looked like that was going to be a very good lap.
And you can see the tire smoke from Scott Davison going through double gauche. I think that's how you say that. Figuring out his way through the campus complex, through Stavelo. And then you're basically on the throttle all the way through. Want to be on the throttle through Blanchimont. I know, that's weird, me trying to do a French accent from California. It's very odd. Need to inject a little Canadian in me, I guess. Through the bus stop. Someone spun. Oh, he just barely gets out of the way. Good evasive maneuvers there by Scott Davison, and he just crosses the finish line. Let's see where he ends up. Waiting for the timing screen to show. He'll nab a second place for now, but he's 1.6 seconds off of the lead. Your leader is Craig Baxter. He's just coming out of the pits now. I have a feeling that spun car really just hindered the performance there, Nino. I don't know about you, but when you see a car spun in the chicane, it's a hair-raising experience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Especially coming out, you're pretty much in all concentration. You just need to nail that last chicane, which is, very much where you can very easily lose a few times. That could be very much mean the difference between first and second, or even lower places. But Craig Baxter with a 1:42.6, that's a stellar lap.
That is blistering. It would help.
He's over a second quicker from the rest of the field so far. Obviously, Sam Carpenter hasn't yet set a time lap, and obviously Scott Davison was kind of impeded in that last chicane. But that's still a mega lap by Baxter.
We have less than 2 minutes left, so drivers will be wanting to get out on the track, set as fast a lap as they can, and if they're lucky, they might be able to cross the start-finish line and set another lap. We're watching Fred Bawden, who had a fantastic premiere. He nabbed a podium. It was surprising, and then had a bit of an issue and ended up having his last race be invalidated. So it sounds like he has actually fixed that issue, and we'll see how he does driving Brandon O'Henlon's car today. I believe he has actually joined the Vulcan Racing squad, so he just needs his own livery added in and created. I know it's in the works. It just hasn't quite been finished up yet. Got to get all the details just right. I don't think he really wants to fly the German flag on the side of the car. That said, he's looking pretty stellar here. Bit of tire smoke heading into Radion. But a 6th place start here at Spa would be a fantastic spot to start from him. Because usually he's a lot better in the race setup. Usually. Not always, but usually.
Sam Carpenter set a good 31.1 first sector. That's a decent, very similar time compared to Craig Baxter. So we're looking to see if he can nab the 2nd place here. Obviously, Scott Davison will be wanting to do one more lap as well. But Sam Carpenter looks like he has his lap on course this time. Unlike last time, we had to bail out. Huge lock up there coming around that turn, but yeah.
That was a bit of a slide, but we kind of expect that in the quality setups. Just smoking front tires all over the place. But he sets himself up here for the campus corner and Stavolo. That looked pretty stable. Looks like you got a decent exit. We can go on board, have a look here. You can see the kind of speeds that they're getting. 310 through Blanchemont. Going to set himself up for the chicane. You see he's just on the binders hard. Late braking. Kind of slides to the outside, but he manages to make the corner. I think he lost a little bit of time there. He's going to cross the start-finish line right there, and the lap has been logged. Let's see where he ends up. Nabs a 2nd place. That is fantastic. What a run. That last lap was insane.
It's a great lap from Carpenter there just to get that thing. Scott Davison not set a very good first sector there. He's already behind. Has improved in the 2nd sector, but don't know if it'll be enough to take 2nd place from Sam Carpenter. Might be looking at the 3rd. Unless he improves very much in this last sector. Let's see what he crosses the line with.
Grabs a 3rd. Not bad. Considering
Does
that
grab a 3rd.
Considering he's on the harder compound, he's on the mediums. So we kind of expected that a little bit. Carpenter was on the soft. Now, the drivers will have to start with the tires that they have chosen in Q2. If you didn't make into Q2, you pretty much have free reign. You can choose any of the 3 tires, but no rain in sight. So no worries there. The issue, I think, for Scott, though, is that he's not going to have the grip there at the beginning. So he's going to have to try to stay in that 3rd slot and try to keep up with Sam Carpenter as much as he can. I kind of expect Baxter to just run away with it, at least at first. And we can't see what tires that he has on. Let's see if we can see what he's got. Yeah, see, he's on the Baxter's on the soft. So he's probably going to try to run away from Carpenter and his teammate Scott Davison at the front of the field. But a big one, at least for me, is Nick Brackey in 4th. That is a great showing for him. He doesn't usually qualify very well, but a 4th place for him is fantastic. Of course, he'll be starting from the outside going into La Source. He's going to have a little bit of traffic, I think. Everybody checking up behind him. Right, moving into the race. La Source going to be so important here. It's a historic corner. There's been so many crashes. The drivers are just going to have to be super careful trying to make their way through there. Of course, we had 3 back of grids. The back of grid penalties, I had that right here. We have, well, James Costello. He has a back of grid, so he'll be back there. And then, is Jurica here? Did I see Jurica? Yeah, Jurica Slovenak has a pit lane start. So he's going to have to just start from the pits. Oh, that was close. And I believe Tom Hooper also has a back of grid. Just to kind of clarify some things, and I think this needs to be clarified, Nino, the penalties are handed out by not only rFactor 2 coordinators, but there's a whole slew of stewards that have a look at replays and the situation to make sure that everything is fair. And this is coordinators from across Apex Online Racing have a look at this and offer their opinions. So it's definitely a non-partial, non-partisan team here that makes sure that everything is fair. If something isn't fair, then people speak up. I've seen it myself. There's been a few arguments, but in the end, the right call is usually made.
Yeah, we've definitely seen the fair share of arguments in terms of penalties, and I think it's a term of maybe people getting like the number of penalties that they're getting. Maybe they just feel like it's a bit too harsh for the. Well, they feel like, well, how do you say it? The punishment maybe doesn't fit the crime. Maybe maybe what their arguments are. They keep getting, but the rules are pretty much laid out. As simple as they are.
Right.
If you break them, there's really no hiding.
Yeah, and the rules are harsh, yes, but we do expect a certain level of not only professionalism, but just a certain level of driving here. And granted, I mean, if it's your first time here, it's kind of expected that you're not going to be that fast. So, you have to know your limits and know where you're fast and where you're not, and then it basically comes down to watching for the blue flags and making sure that you stay out of trouble. A lot of people approach the series as sort of like an iRacing setup where people know their limits, and if you're exceeding those limits, then you back off, and it's that easy. And when people see that here, that you're backing off and you know what's going on, then people start to really respect you. And honestly, these cars are probably the hardest that I've ever driven. I drove them a lot in Season 2, just making sure I kind of knew how they worked. And that said, though, once you nail that setup, super easy to drive. So I strongly encourage anyone who would like to have a shot at this to check out ApexOnlineRacing.com, sign up on the forums, and have a look around, introduce yourself. We're all, we like to joke around with each other, but we do take the racing fairly seriously, and, have a little bit of fun while you're at it. And even the backmarkers have some fantastic races.
Oh yeah, there's definitely, very fun racing and very fun battles throughout the field. It's not just, Craig Baxter, the Defiance cars, right in the front. The midfield is very exciting to watch. Even the drivers at the back of the field, they have their own fun battles, and it's obviously skill level between these drivers are different. So you expect in terms of the consistent results that come out of it, you expect it to be. You expect the consistency in there, but there are races that in time to time that come out, and you're just gifted with some great entertainment. We've seen plenty between Sam Carpenter and Scott Davison, plenty of battles between them. The Vulcan cars and the North South Racing cars and the Team Tepper cars. They've numerous battles in the past races. Not all of them have come out without without their controversy. I know, but for the viewers, they can really be there's no complaint. It's fun throughout.
And just to kind of give you an example, we're watching Evan Rice and Lee Mangan run around the track with each other. This is warm up, so none of this really counts. But still very clean. And Evan Rice had to go way out to the outside. And he got pushed out. Megan is just on the limit to the inside. That's the kind of racing that we expect here at the rFactor 2 side. And that was actually beautiful. Well done by Evan Rice. But And I think we should probably touch on, we just saw one of the Sabre cars, I think that was Carpenter, practicing his starts. There is a bit of a sequence here that does have to go on, and the start's so important. Just like real F1, the cars are designed to act like the real F1 cars. I believe they are modeled around the Mercedes and the Ferraris in terms of handling. So you do get a high quality car, all custom. The tracks are customized a little bit. What was that?
Oh, what the hell?
Liam! What in the world? And now he's teetering on the wall. Son's rear wing, so the car is way off balance, and it's just pointing right into the side of the hill. Yeah, he finally escapes out. Liam, what, yeah, we're gonna, there might be words after that.
Not sure what that was about. Obviously, you prefer to see that in the warm-up rather than in a race situation.
I wonder if
still.
I mean, Liam's not one to usually do that, so there might have been an issue. But I mean,
it might have been.
We'll have to talk to him later. I might have to give him
a
bit of words.
I know Craig Baxter before the stream started in practice sessions had a similar situation where you just go straight on. I don't know if it was maybe he's has a technical issue with his setup.
No, he pressed escape. So here in for those not familiar with rFactor 2, when you press escape, you go back to the garage, much like we saw Sam Carpenter do right there. But he pressed escape right there at the top there at Lacombe, and it just went straight on, actually speared someone else. And it was a huge pileup. It was actually pretty funny. But, yeah, the car just stayed frozen, so his game had frozen, and it was a mess. But once we sorted out what all happened, it turns out it wasn't on purpose or anything like that. It's just a bad spot to do that. So, I actually typed in the chat, yeah, don't escape there, because that's a bad spot. So for those who are new to this, pressing escape does bring you back to the pits. But if you do it while moving, odd things like what we just saw right there may or may not happen. I guess it all depends on your computer and just how good it is. rFactor 2 is pretty intensive as far as using the resources. In fact, I mean, in order to stream, both Nino and I have pretty kick-butt computers to make sure that we bring you the high-quality action and the high-quality streams that we can. But I want to welcome everyone in to Apex Online Racing. We did have a little bit of a late start, at least according to YouTube. That's because we did skip qualifying 1 a little bit, just some back of grids and things. But 15 drivers have shown up. Nino, we should probably go through the championship while we still have a little bit of time.
Yes, I was about to discuss that. Mathematically, Craig Baxter can secure the Drivers' Championship this race.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Didn't get a chance to do the math.
He's currently 82 points ahead of Scott Davison with 4 races to go. So this technically kind of a must-win for Scott. If you want to keep it going.
Yeah, it'd be a must-win. I mean,
but even if Scott wins and Craig Baxter finishes in second, Craig takes the title.
I think pretty much, yeah. I know he can definitely secure it in the United States. That's in 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. But Baxter, believe it or not, doesn't like this track. He's not a big fan. He's just not very, in his words, not very fast, and a lot of things can happen. So we'll have to see as the race wears on. But Scott Davison in second place. Carpenter sitting third in the Sabre car, 93 points. He's still in the hunt for second place. And get this, Max Lister in fourth place for North-South. Unfortunately, not here today. Same goes for Alfie Lawrenson in fifth place. And then you have Brandon O'Hanlon in sixth, also not here. But Nick Brackey is here today. So he's going to be looking to move up in the standings. Well, actually, yeah, he could have a good finish and possibly take over fourth place for sure. Let's see. Max Shepard, James Costello, the other Team Tepa car in ninth. Kazi is here today. He'll be starting from the back of the grid, though, so he'll have some work to do. He's got to make up 5 places in order to get some points. There is potential there. Kazi's been showing a lot of speed. Liam Mangan missed a couple of races and a DNF, as well as finishing out of the points, so he finds himself in 10th place. And then you have, Fred Bodden. He's only raced in 1 race, and he finds himself in 12th because he finished in 3rd. So we have some fast people here today who could play a little bit of spoiler as we move into the race session, I believe. Yeah, we should be moving into the race session here pretty quick. So, Nino, obviously, we have a feeling that Baxter will have a good showing here. The better question is who can run with him and who could challenge for that lead?
Well, you expect teammate Scott Davison. He really needs to get probably his best performance all season this race if he wants to keep the championship going. Sam Carpenter will be from 2nd place. He'll have a good chance as well. I really want to see what Nick Brackey can do. Starting from 4th. I know he's had his fair share of moments. Unfortunately, most of the time he's got himself involved in some incidences with other drivers that kind of ruined his races. So you really want to see something clean out of him, and maybe a podium could come his way. Anybody else? Liam Mangan could get in the mix.
Yeah, Fred Bodden.
Fred Bodden as well. His one only race was a podium, so he can definitely get involved. Other than that, it looks like a very interesting and very unpredictable midfield battle.
I was going to say that middle of the top 10 should be fairly interesting. You got Julian Klingelmeyer in there, so he'll be probably a little bit nervous starting 6th. To run down your order again, Craig Baxter, Sam Carpenter starting in 2nd place, and Scott Davison in 3rd. Nick Brackey in 4th. Fred Bodden nabbing a 5th. Julian Klingelmeyer in 6th. Not his first race here, but it's been a little while since we've seen him that high. Max Shepard, Jurand Kuzmirchek, fantastic start for him. He'll be in 8th. Liam Mengen, Evan Rice, Stefan Keimberger in 11th. Then you have Philip Schiff. As everybody, we're going into the race. Why did they not go to the? Here we go. There was a bit of a kerfuffle there. The server kind of freaked out, it seemed. Let's see, where were we? Evan Rice grabbing a top 10. Stefan Keimberger in 11th. Philip Schiff in 12th. And you have Costello, Hooper, and Jurika Slovenak rounding out the field. So 15 drivers here today for Spa. The Belgian Grand Prix just about to get underway. The favorites are at the top, but we have some spoilers looking to kind of see what they can do, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be a good one.
Unfortunately, there might be issues in terms of getting the race session going, so it might pull it back to warm up again. We had a similar issue with, kind of a different issue. It was concerning a safety car back in Silverstone. But, but we have another issue in terms, and I think it will just call back to rFactor 2. What the hell are you doing?
Right, no kidding. The server controls going a little wonky today, it seems, but that's okay. It happens from time to time, and something along these lines. Basically, what has to happen is the warm up is restarted, and then the grid order is reset. It might be one of those things where the file that holds the grid maybe just didn't take, and it looks like they've restarted the server. They've restarted the whole server. Yeah. Getting an update right here. Yeah, just a slight server problem. And so the server's going to restart. So it happens from time to time, Nino, that, things have to be restarted and reconnected. There was actually a couple of server blips a little earlier that caused drivers to just be disconnected. So the server that we use is actually very reliable. This is probably the first time in a year and a half that I've been commentating here at Apex Online Racing that there was any problems like this, at least. So we'll just get everything restarted and let the server sort itself out, and then we'll get underway. Nino, I don't think we ever did a proper introduction for you. As far as your history in commentating and racing in general.
I think I did back in, which race was it? Might have been the second race. But I'll do one again.
All right. What do you got? Let's go. What's your history with rFactor 2 and sim racing in general?
Well, in terms of rFactor 2, I really just got in with this same league when it was before AOR. It was called Nebula Racing League. I got into with this league, and I commentated with them for a couple races. Obviously, I personally know the guys, so they needed me to just come in and commentate. I previously did commentary with F1, but I swapped over to rFactor. I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. I was kind of nervous because obviously between a video game like F1 and a sim like rFactor, there's obviously going to be a lot of differences.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for differentiating. That's so good.
If anybody didn't know, yeah, there's a lot of differences. But yeah, that's how I started with that. Elsewhere, in terms of sim racing, not really much with me in terms of history. And when these guys merged the league with AOR, I pretty much came with it. Took me 2 seasons to come in, but yeah, pretty much joined with them.
As far as my history, in almost a previous life, it seems like I did endurance racing, a lot of prototype racing, things like that. Did some short leagues for a little while, and ended up joining a team that ran true endurance racing. That I don't know, for about 8 years or so, I did numerous 12 hours of Spa, numerous 24 hours of Le Mans. I've lost count. We ran 2 leagues at one time that kind of ran synonymous with each other. So we'd have a lot of practice for one league, and then we used another league as part of practice to make sure everything was good to go. And it gave me a certain insights into a lot of the tracks that we race here at Apex Online Racing. That the looks like the server is back up, so just gonna get in there real quick. But yeah, it's weird when I get into an open wheel car such as this particular car. I actually have a little bit of a hard time because it's so downforce oriented, and whereas a prototype, not so much. You know, you can set up the car to handle a certain way in a prototype, whereas especially without downforce, you have a little bit more weight to play with. You can kind of fling the car around, whereas in this car, it's very precise. And you have to be not only precise, but you have to be consistent at the same time. It's one of the reasons why, the likes of Craig Baxter, Scott Davison are so fast, consistently fast, because they are just so consistent in their inputs. I myself, a little shaky when it comes to that stuff, but because I know these tracks so well and I've kind of nerded out on the history and the line and how to properly drive these tracks, it has sort of allowed me to come in here as a commentator and share those experiences and bring in a level of a certainty when you see a mistake or you see a weird line come through, or you fling a car around the outside trying to get around someone, and if it's a good spot to do that. So being able to talk about it and not spend, man, I used to spend a good 40 hours a week just in practice for endurance, just trying to get the setup right and everything. That's the kind of dedication that's sort of required for a simulation like rFactor 2, especially someone like myself who's from America, who is not the best drivers in the world. you don't have a whole ton of practice and you don't have a lot to go off of. You can only read so much before you have to start executing. And that's where I think these guys, they're lifelong fans of F1, just fans of racing in general, and it's so much easier to consume the product compared to someone who's in America. It's kind of hard to find middle of the night type stuff. And these guys study. I've seen, or I've heard, I should say, Baxter and Davison and the others, actually figure out how to go around these tracks in a fast and speedy manner without frying tires and doing all of that. It's definitely been an experience commentating here, and watching these guys grow has been a lot of fun. Someone like Liam Mengen, who started last season, he's grown into quite the fast driver. Is he the fastest out there? No, but he keeps improving, which is always fun to watch. You get guys like James Costello, who is a commentator here at Apex Online Racing for F1 2018. Has put a lot of time into that game, and switching over to rFactor 2 has been an eye-opening experience for him as far as the differences between a game and a simulation. And I think it's hilarious, Nino, when people say that F1 2018 or F1 2019 is a simulation, when in fact it really isn't. Something like this simulation is, it basically requires a steering wheel. If you don't have a steering wheel here, you're going to have a really hard time being able to get the consistency needed. Whereas a game like F1 2018 or 2019, or, even like Project Cars 2, or really anything else other than maybe iRacing, if you don't have a wheel, you're going to have it's so hard to do anything, especially with the likes of these guys.
Definitely. I've seen personally myself the differences between the two, and I kind of shared the same ignorance, because I started with F1 and with F1 games on console, and that was all I had to focus on. And then I was introduced to rFactor and iRacing and Project Cars and the Set Course and other proper sims, and I was astonished the difference. It really is. It really does take a lot to shift between one and the other. And I definitely know most of these guys have moved from F1 to rFactor, to a sim racing game, and they've done it very well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the skills transfer over, knowing the tracks and things like that do go along. It goes a long way. But being able to take the setup parameters that rFactor 2 and the likes of iRacing and other simulations, Assetto Corsa comes to mind as well. Being able to take the setup parameters that you can use to make the car do certain things, and then making that fast. Becomes a skill in and of itself. And there's plenty of resources out there for those who are new and maybe a little bit intimidated by everything we just said to help you along the way. And of course, there's a single player mode. You don't have to wait for a server to be open. That you can test things. The likes of Fred Bodden does that a lot. And even in Endurance used to do that a whole time. And it looks like we're getting ready to start the race. The rules still apply. You got to run the same setups. You got to run all the stuff and the things, and essentially all you got to do is press race, and you're put out onto the grid. And we're looking at Dren Kuzmierczak to see the grid spot where he's at. Hopefully he has his starting procedure nailed, because an 8th place for him would be fantastic. But he's got some fast guys behind him, the likes of James Costello, Liam Mengen. He's got Evan Rice behind him, a fast guy. Philip Schiff is behind him, who's shown that he has a lot of speed when he's got his car set up. But we're just about to get underway. Get a bit of a spotting lap here, and we'll move into the start. So, Nino, all right, there's a lot of corners to this place. Where should we be watching for action?
Oh, that's a good one.
I know, right? That's a quagmire in and of itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of locations where action can really happen. I think probably the most common you'd probably see most of the overtakes will be coming up a rouge down the Camel Straight heading to Les Combes. Just because it is a very long straight, and if you're following someone up, it's a DRS zone. You're following someone up. You have a great slipstream. You're pretty much going to get an overtake done. Heading into the chicane before the start finish line,
sure.
Is another place. A very slow course. It's the slowest corner on the track, so definitely another place to get your overtakes done, especially when you're following car very close.
It's possibly the second slowest corners on the circuit in the whole championship.
Oh yeah,
I think Baku is probably got the slowest corner going into the castle.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah. Those are the two main locations. Yeah, those two. Other places you could say after Les Combes. When you're heading into the hairpin, that's another location. Obviously, it's a very short straight going down there, but it is downhill.
I would throw in there if you can nail Les Fagnes, which is the S's before campus. You can set up something real nice heading into campus. I've seen that a couple of times. And if you don't nail the pass there, you can usually finish it off in Stavelot and just get a good run off of heading into Blanchimont and all that. But I know in endurance, for those who are more familiar with endurance, that's a great place in a prototype to pass GT cars. The GTs usually run wide right there. So we might see a little bit of that, but we'll have to see as we just about to get this race underway. Don't have to be on pit limiter or anything like that, but it's a good idea to go ahead and run a little bit slow, get your brakes nice and warm. The tire strategy for the front runners, softs for both Baxter and Carpenter, but Davison, the other Defiance car, has decided to run with mediums. We mentioned that before. Brachy on the softs, we got Bodden on the mediums as well. So a little bit of differing strategy. Davison probably going to try to stay as close as he can to the leaders and then try to gap them as much as he can while they run their tires out and have to pit. But looks like we're going to have a backwards view here. Let's see if we can get most of the field in view. Let's start there. Yeah, we'll be watching Max Shepard in the Vulcan car for the start of the race. Everybody getting in their spots. So tense moments, although we can't see the lights. Here's the lights. Hopefully they actually go. Very tense, hence why we're so silent. Someone may not be in their grid just right. There it goes, the 5 red lights coming on. And we're underway here for the Belgian Grand Prix. Oh, massive pileup in the background. What was that about? We'll have to take a look a little bit later as we watch the leaders heading into La Source. We got Nick Brachy, I think, managing to slot into 4th place. Fred Bodden into 5th. There's some side-by-side racing and Infinix cars right there. Got Max Shepard. They're going side-by-side into La Source. Shepard had to back off. Make sure he didn't pile it up. Heading into the Kemmel straight. Shepard gets the slipstream.
Carpenter around the outside of Craig Baxter for the lead. I think Craig Baxter holds the inside line. He keeps the lead, and then Scott Davison and Nick Brachy side-by-side as well.
Davison barely slotting ahead of Nick Brachy. Brachy challenging to the inside again. He's got the softer tires, so he should be good here. But Davison cuts him off. A fantastic run in Oh, man, that was off camber, too, so that was a little bit dangerous, but it worked out well. Bracky did back off. That's the kind of driving standards we need here at rFactor 2 to make sure that gnarly crashes like that don't happen, but some massive stuff in the background. Evan Rice and Jurin Kuzmicek, DNF already, didn't even cross the start-finish line. That was some weirdness back there. I didn't quite see exactly what happened, but some close racing here for the 6th through 9th place runners. Julian Klingelmeyer trying to hold on as the Infinix of Philip Schiff finds himself in 7th place. Nick Bracky into 4th as well. I think we mentioned that a couple of times, but Bracky in the Sabre looking to challenge Scott Davison for 3rd place. They round Blanchimont. They could make up some time. There's Julian? No, oh no, he decides not to try to outbrake. There's an Infinix car on the inside of a Tepa. I didn't see that exactly, but Philip Schiff. Oh, Schiff has to dive into the pits. Oh, he went way wide and ended up in the pits. That is rough. He's going to lose a lot of spots there.
That's a bizarre incident. If he's going through, yeah, he's going through. So it was a very bizarre going wide and into the pit lane. So he's very much committed. But yeah, that's a bad mistake. That's going to drop him right down the field.
Absolutely brutal, but just probably one of the weirdest starts that we've ever seen. Is we see Nick Bracky looking on the inside of Scott Davison. This is for a podium. It's only lap 2. There is no DRS. There's no real reason to push too hard, Nick. Save your tires while you can, at least in my opinion, but Scott Davison is right there and showing a lot of speed on those mediums. And while the mediums are fresh, they'll be fast, but the fall off will happen, I think, lap 5 or 6. That said, those softs will eat themselves up around this place. Nick, though, showing a ton of speed, smoking the outside tires a little bit as he makes his way through the corners downhill. Absolutely wild first part of the race. That was insane. Nino, were you able to replay back to see what happened at the start there?
So I'm looking at the start, and I think Evan Rice had a bit of a slow start coming out the lights. Philip Schiff had to avoid him. And then when Evan Rice got going, I think he took a second to get going. I'm going to mess his name up. Jurin Kuzmicek, he didn't get going at all. And then Evan Rice just went straight into the back of him. Oh. Bizarre. I don't know if he just lost concentration. I think Evan Rice was kind of focusing on his own slow start.
Right.
And he's focusing on his own slow start and just didn't see the car ahead not going. And just ran into the back of him, and that's how both of them, DNF'd right there. That's weird.
That was very weird. James Costello, out of the race now. I thought I saw his car flying. I don't know what happened there, but
okay. Repeating the start. Philip Schiff actually jumped the start. So him going through the pits was not a mistake. He's actually jumped the start and had to serve a drive-through. So I'm focused on, because Philip Schiff started right behind Evan Rice, and he started very early. So I thought Evan Rice had a slow start there, but no, Evan Rice started on time, but he just didn't see Jurin ahead of him, not move at all and crash straight into him. But Philip Schiff behind him jumped the start. So
I know
very
very bizarre. I know he was nervous because it's his first race, and
yeah.
Well, welcome to rFactor 2, I guess. You got to nail that start procedure, and unfortunately for Jurin, he was not able to do that. That's so brutal. And I know Evan was looking to have a decent race as well. Then, unfortunately, that happens from time to time. But the leaders right now, Baxter has not been able to gap Carpenter. The Sabre car running very fast right now. Carpenter on the softs as well, but Davison has decided to just simply relax for a second and let the race come to him, and I think that's a smart move as we're just about to enter lap number 4. The leaders not gapped out. I totally expected Baxter to just kind of run away with this, but at this point he hasn't. Greg has said time and time again that he's been waiting for someone to challenge him for the lead, and I think this might be the race where Carpenter starts to show some color as we head onto the Kemmel Straight. I believe DRS is activated. Yes, it is. So this could be getting close here at the front. I would give it a lap or two, but it's going to. Man, we better strap in. I was kind of sitting here without the seatbelts on because it's slightly uncomfortable and it's a little warm. But I think it might be time to strap in, lads. It's going to be one kicker of a race. This Carpenter runs just a little bit wide. Tricky corner there. We're going to say it time and time again, but there's some tire smoke off of Craig Baxter trying to stay ahead. He's pushing pretty hard, it looks like. Let's go ahead and go on board with Sam Carpenter. Have a look. He makes his way around. Efanier. Trying to set up for campus, but Baxter is starting to pull away a little bit. Oh, Carpenter, look at the braking. Carpenter has the braking areas nailed down. He got some corner entry speed, but that exit, not so much. As it looks like Baxter does pull away a little bit coming out of the slower corners, and we've seen that time and time again where Baxter just has so much grip coming out of corners. He just got that exit speed nailed down. Davison actually catching up now to Sam Carpenter. Oh, Davison getting real close. This could be a setup here for a pass, maybe. DRS activated for everybody behind Baxter now. Coming down the start-finish line straight. Out of the source. This is where things will get interesting, I think. Let's have a look at Davison. He's got Nick Brackey, the other Sabre car, behind him as well, so he's going to have to defend. Make sure he doesn't make a mistake, because Brackey will pounce on him as quick as he can. DRS opens up. Now, with Carpenter being so close to Baxter, there won't be a way for Davison to catch up using DRS. So Davison's just going to have to do it on sheer driving grit. Same goes for Nick Brackey as well. And Nino, we know Scott Davison does not like to follow for a long time.
We've definitely seen in previous races that, yep, that is definitely the case. He will want to push forward as fast as he can. I don't know if that's just genuine impatience but then again, he does feel like he doesn't want to be stuck behind these cars. It does hurt his tires, trying to push so much into try getting an overtake done. But
he does.
At the moment, he's keeping.
Go ahead.
I was going to say he does have a genuine gap between him and Sam Carpenter. So it's not. But he does have Nick Brackey right behind him. They can't relax too much.
Yeah, and Brackey
so
is also on the softs. So I fully expected Nick Brackey to at least go for a pass or try to make something happen. But hasn't really been able to do that. Davison has shown a whole ton of speed, so electing to go for the slightly harder compound in the mediums. I'm telling you, we mentioned it before, but that's a smart move. Davison really just kind of needs to hang out and wait for those softs to wear out. Those mediums will come into their own, and I'm not exactly sure how long the mediums will last. I know the softs will last about 8 laps or so before they really start to fall off. We're already 6 laps into this race, so Davison might elect to be as patient as he can, just making sure that Brackey doesn't pass him, which is it's not an easy thing to do. Nick Brackey, once he starts smelling blood, he starts to go for it. As it looks like Carpenter getting pretty close to Baxter there for a bit. I wonder if Craig Baxter just backed off a little bit, trying to save the tire while he can.
Definitely tire wear has to be in the minds of all four of these drivers. And considering Sam Carpenter keeps getting that DRS down the straight, he keeps the gap close. So the pit stop strategies are definitely going to come when the pit window does open. It's definitely going to bring up some interesting scenarios for all 4 of these. Obviously, Scott Davison on the medium compound tire will be out of sync with the other 3. But these other 3 with the softs should be reaching the limit very soon.
Apologies for the camera work. I misplaced my rear view. We're watching Craig Baxter from behind. You can see the gap there to Sam Carpenter. Sam, closing up fast. Under braking. Carpenter has that braking point absolutely nailed down, but again, Baxter pulling away. He's able to get on the throttle so much faster. I believe that I think he got him to work. Baxter did upgrade his pedals. He went to a load cell middle of the season, I think last season. So it looks like he's definitely got that dialed in. I believe he had some issue with it for a little while and then sorted that out. But, Carpenter might have a slipstream here. He should be able to close up.
Definitely closing up.
Oh, man, that is some closing speed. He got that braking point nailed down, too, but the arrow goes away on the front, so he locks up just a touch. Loses a touch of time to Baxter. And, man, I'm going to have to comment on this. Baxter has that rear end of the car absolutely nailed to the floor. That thing is not moving at all. Comparatively, Carpenter's is moving around a touch, and you can see the arrow affecting basically everyone behind Baxter. It does benefit you to lead a pack if you can. It does make passing here a little bit rough, but you got to commit to it. And it looks like at this juncture, Carpenter has decided to not commit to it so much, as it looks like, speaking of Sabre cars, Nick Brecky has fallen off just a bit.
I think Nick Brecky is chased a lot.
That was
yeah. Yeah, but definitely the gaps have opened up now, so definitely guys on the soft tires definitely looking to take more care to really try and hit their perfect window. I think Craig Baxter might be taking more care than the others, but he knows that he looks like he has the pace advantage in the last two sectors, which negates the DRS advantage that Carpenter will have heading down the Kemmel Straight.
Checking into the midfield, there's a bit of a race here. Julian Klingmeyer, Philip Schiff, and Stefan Keimberger are racing each other pretty hard. Keimberger had a run on Schiff because Schiff made a huge mistake. Coming out of, I believe that was Blanchimont, or no, Stavelo. He actually went off the track just a bit. So the gaps have opened up again. It looks like Schiff has... Did he fall off? That was weird. Unfortunately, I missed that while I was looking at times here. But Carpenter has actually fallen off of Craig Baxter. It looks like Craig has decided to open up the gap a little bit. Or Carpenter has fried his tires just a touch.
Yep, I think Carpenter's goal here was to try and attack Baxter early on, to try and see if he could pass early on. It hasn't worked, and now he's fallen into the clutches of Davison, who has been lurking in the back, but he has been taking care of his own tires. And on the harder compound, he will have that longer grip to go further. So this might be Davison's chance to close in for second place.
See what kind of speeds Davison is getting. Got a little bit of a gap in front of him, so the wings are working. Spoilers. I don't know. They're wings. Whatever. Braking hard. Grabs third gear. He's going to try to not spin the tire up. Grabs second coming out of the bus stop. Closes up nicely on Carpenter. Carpenter has decided to lay off the brakes a little bit, it seems. Trying to save the tire. Oh, Baxter, that's a huge lockup going into La Source. But Carpenter slid a little bit, so that outside tire is going to be very hot. Let's ride along through Radillon and Eau Rouge. Not in that order. Just barely touches the apexes. Well done by Scott Davison, trying to conserve as much speed as possible onto the Kemmel Straight. Look at that closing speed. Carpenter doesn't have DRS at this point, so there could be a race brewing here between Davison and Carpenter. Using that DRS, personally, Nino, I'm not a fan of DRS, but it does give you some quality of racing. It does make the racing a little bit more exciting. Not gonna lie.
It definitely is what you'd call a kind of a necessary evil, if that's the if that's the proper word. You definitely prefer not to have it, just because it kind of makes, you know, what you call like fake overtakes, in a sense. But I mean, without it, you're not going to get as much action. So I think it's here to stay. And you know, there is a strategy in itself on how to use it.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
I was actually just about to mention that. Yeah, there is a bit of strategy, you know, obviously using it, but it also kind of allows you to time the pass, and it opens up some fuel saving. Oh, Davison, that's a huge lockup. He's going to run wide here. Barely makes the second corner of the chicane there. DRS has opened up, and he's going to lose a lot of time to Carpenter. Although he did close the gap quite a bit. There's a lot of lockups this race. I'm surprised. Usually these guys are very accurate when it comes to the braking points, but the lockups have been plenty here in the early goings of the Belgian Grand Prix here at Apex Online Racing. It has been a bit of an interesting race so far. For those who are just tuning in, welcome in. Feel free to check us out at apexonlineracing.com if you haven't yet. Join the forums. But it looks like Davison has lost the DRS ability, falling a second behind Sam Carpenter. That said, though, Nick Brackey... Oh, wow, that's a big sideways slide there for Brackey. I thought Brackey was going to close up a little bit on Davison, but not so much. It looks like Brackey's tires are starting to go away. The wear demon, if you will, rearing its head for Nick Brackey. We should be seeing some pit stops here pretty soon.
I think Davison's kind of going wide there in the chicane has cost him. Now he's fallen out of DRS range of Sam Carpenter. So I think Sam Carpenter does have some a slight breeze behind him now, in terms of a gap now. So he won't be so much under pressure from the other Defiance car. But definitely coming up to the point where these tires are starting to pass their best.
So we're 10 laps in to the Belgian Grand Prix, and we expected about 8 laps out of the softs, and it looks like the guys have figured out a way to save the tires a little bit. Last season, I believe everybody pitted on lap 9, so with the softer compound. So we don't have the hardest compounds available here. They're right in the middle, and so tire strategy will be paramount, almost like it always is, but it just comes down to your driving style and how aggressive you are. We do have some aggressive drivers in this field, and yeah, that can be rewarded here at Spa, but I mean, you have to do it just right. And obviously you have to have the setup. But Davison does have DRS now, so he's within the second of Carpenter. It looks like Sam is starting to fall off just a little bit. The grip levels starting to wear down, it seems. So what do you think, Nino? The next lap? Probably pits?
I think so. Nick Brackey has just made his pit stop, so he's definitely chosen this lap to come in. So I would presume the next lap maybe we'll see these guys take action. I don't think they can stay out any longer and try and risk falling off. These guys really don't like when you push them over the limit.
No.
Definitely not. So obviously Davison might go a bit longer here with his harder compound.
And to update everyone, Nick Brackey started in 4th, so he dropped a couple of positions, but he's come out on the mediums. So he'll be out there for a little while. I think this could be a one-stop race if done right. But in my opinion, that's going to push it a little bit. And, I mean, we might see some drivers take 2 stops just to make sure they can get to the end as fast as possible, but I don't know. We'll have to see as the race wears on. Scott Davison, though, just having a look at him, looks like he's still pretty stable. The medium's holding up fairly well to the demands of front running. Carpenter, though, is still holding his own.
Actually, Carpenter decided to go for one more lap.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yeah, very surprising there. And, Davison we'll have DRS down the straight, so we'll close the gap further down than Carpenter. He's managed to close his way back into DRS range, recovering from his own mistake. But both Carpenter and Baxter holding these soft tires very well. More than I thought. We thought was possible. So definitely they've trying to eke as much as they can out of this set of tires, because they don't want to put too much pressure if they are going for a one stop. They want to put too much pressure on the harder compound tires going into the end of the race.
It was a big slide by Scott Davison, but it worked. He sprint carred his way around the downhill section of Spa. That was fantastic. And he's trying to set up here. Stay as close as he can. Maybe have a run through Blanchemont. Come out of the campus complex. A little wide. That's going to lose a little time. We're watching the rear view from Sam Carpenter. Oh my God, look at that closing. He's got the slipstream.
He's got it very good. He might make an attempt. I think he thinks better of it. Craybax will go through. I think Sam Carpenter will dive into the pit lane.
Yeah, yes he does.
I think he's decided very much. My battle with Davison looks like it's going to be a losing battle if I stay out in this set. So he will decide to make the change now onto the hard compounds, the white stripe hard compounds. Baxter going out for at least another lap. So you think he can just get one more lap out of these tires? If he can, he might very well try and put on the mediums. He feels he can go for that long. I don't know if he can, but he's going well enough.
On mediums, and make the mediums last what, 19 laps?
19 laps. It will be very marginal.
Would be marginal. I don't know if the mediums will last 19 laps. That said, Davison hasn't shown any resolve as far as slowing down yet, so maybe Davison's going to go medium. That would be interesting. Very
interesting indeed if he does choose for that course of action. But I think
he's starting to slide around a little bit though.
Yeah.
But we mentioned last lap he basically sprint carted around the downhill section here at Spa. It was, don't get me wrong, it's fun to watch, but that's absolutely hellacious on the tires. And these tires do not like to be overheated. When this tire model was introduced, I did a little testing myself, and I like to run the car a little loose personally, and it absolutely fried the tires. You got to set it up to where the contact patch is as large as possible in basically all the corners. But we'll have to see. Got to get that toe just right. Davison, though, has been locking up the rears a lot, so I think his brake bias might be just a little off. I don't know if he realizes that he's doing it, but there's a bit of smoke coming off the backs under hard braking. Fred Bodden has actually taken over third place, running in the Vulcan right now. Brandon O'Henlin giving him permission to fly those colors. And a fantastic run for Fred Bodden so far. Nick Brackey has moved up to 5th place and could potentially challenge his teammate in Sam Carpenter. But Carpenter on the fresher tires. I believe Carpenter is on the hards. Yes, he is. So 11 runners now. There's been 4 DNFs already out of the 15 drivers. And so everybody a little bit spread out. And honestly, Nino, this is one of those tracks, when you get it all spread out, you can really learn the car. When I did my testing for the season, I actually ran it at Spa, mostly because I know the track so well. But it's one of the most demanding tracks, and if you can run fairly quickly here, you can run pretty quick at just about any other track, bar maybe, I don't know, Baku, and tracks like that, maybe Malaysia or something along those lines. But being able to set up the car for a track like this can give you a great baseline setup for just about anything.
Yeah, it's pretty much you called an old school track.
Very much so.
You could say that.
Yeah.
Very much. Most of the tracks available out there now, are built on that same basis. So they all share similarities in terms of how you set up the car. Crayback does come into the pits after 13 laps. Well, 14 laps on the soft tires.
Yeah,
So that's
same with Scott
impressive.
Davison. Fred Bodden
Scott
will
Davison.
inherit the lead now. Fred has not come into the pits, as far as I know.
Sam Carpenter's already down the straight, so Craig Baxter coming out the pits. It will be close between these two. I think Sam Carpenter might just get out ahead.
It looks like he will. Bracky's right there as well.
Yeah. And Craig will be side by side with Nick Brackey going into Radion.
Big.
He decides to slot behind, but he will have the slipstream and DRS. He might make the overtake here right now. Goes left, Nick Brackey, and Craig goes to the right. We'll have the inside into this corner here. He does make the overtake.
Oh, slight contact.
But slight contact there. Nick Brackey held the outside, but Craig Baxter held his own line as well and managed to keep it ahead of Nick Brackey. A great battle between the two. Great driving.
Great driving indeed. Nick Brackey, one of the most experienced drivers here, has been around for a long time. In fact, he helped create the collision model for this particular car. So he's got a ton of experience. And believe it or not, Craig Baxter did very little testing. He's just that quick. Some would say he's an alien. He's not unbeatable. It does come down to strategy, I think, for to be able to beat Craig. But Craig comes out on the hards. I was kind of expecting a medium run, but I guess not. 17 laps to go here at
Looks like he's going to the end with those tires, as is Sam Carpenter.
with the hards, definitely. But
Yeah.
right now, your leader Fred Bodden now comes into the pits. Carpenter through the chicane, and I think Fred will lose the top three here. In fact, yeah, he definitely will. Looks like there's a bit of a race brewing between. Well, no, Brackey has held station on Baxter at this point. Baxter, though, has just got that exit speed absolutely nailed down. I don't know how he does it, but he's able to get on the throttle so early and come out, straighten out the car without losing a whole, actually not losing any time. He gains a ton of time on pretty much anyone behind him. And both have DRS open, so they'll be catching Sam Carpenter. Should be a race for the lead here in a couple of laps. You can see off in the distance, Scott Davison, the other Defiance car, in 4th place. Has Brackey come in for a pit stop yet? I don't think so.
He has, yes.
Yes, he has. Okay.
He was started on the softs. He's gone into the mediums.
Well, okay, so here we go.
Second stint.
We'll have the strategy play out. With Brackey on the mediums, we'll see how long those will last. And, I mean, hopefully they'll last to the end of the race, but those hards definitely will, as Baxter now looks like he's getting ready to challenge for the lead. He's got Sam Carpenter in front of him. It's a Defiance Sabre battle, as it's been all season. Usually we don't focus on the front a whole ton, mostly because Baxter's usually way out in the lead, but this is pretty much the closest race that we have on the track. Let's head back to Nick Brackey and get an idea of the gap between third and the two front runners. It looks like Nick's car is set up a little bit more for just a touch more downforce. He's not able to get the top speed that his teammate Sam Carpenter or Craig Baxter is able to get, but he should be able to carry the speed through corners a little bit better. And that's the trade-off here at Spa. As the DRS opens for Brackey, you see the letterbox open up down the front stretch into the source. No lockups here.
It's going to have a great run on Carpenter going up.
Let's go on board with Craig Baxter on the hard tires. Carpenter is on the hards as well. So similar strategies. Oh my god, he gains so much speed through Radion. This should be a fantastic race. Down the drag strip that is the Kemmel Straight. Baxter on the inside. He'll actually make the pass happen. A bit of a lockup there, but it doesn't seem to affect him too much. Slight sideways movement. But you have Sam Carpenter slotting back into second place. Craig Baxter completes the rotation and back into the lead. That right there was some well done strategy.
Man, Craig Baxter. What more can be said? He stayed out on that soft compound tires for a further 2 laps after Sam Carpenter came in. In his head, he must think, okay, I'm gonna eke out the absolute maximum out of these tires until these tires are right off the cliff. It doesn't matter. He probably said it doesn't matter if Sam Carpenter does come out maybe a second or two ahead of me, which is of course what happens. He has confidence in his own pace that he knows with the younger tires, he's gonna use those 2 laps extra of grip compared to Carpenter to just make the overtake happen. Just go full flat out and just take back the lead. That's just brilliant from Craig Baxter.
That's the kind of strategy we see from him time and time again, and it works well for him. But we should note he's not running away from the 2 Sabre cars, and it looks like Bracky and Carpenter have slotted themselves into a bit of a rhythm. Bracky has the softer compound. He's going to make them last a little longer, so he wants to stay with his teammate, and hopefully he's able to use the slipstream to his advantage. Of course, he's got to be careful to make sure those tires don't get too hot and make it to the end of the race, but we've pretty much surpassed, we have surpassed the halfway point. Bracky using the DRS to catch a little bit, but seems like he backed off just a touch. Carpenter does have a stake in the points race, so not necessarily team orders. There are no team orders between the Sabre cars. They are allowed to race as hard as they want, but I think it's good of Nick to potentially help out Sam Carpenter as much as he can. The question is, what can he do from behind? And we'll have to see as, again, the race does wear on. Checking in to the midfield, we've seen a little bit of racing between Jurka Slovenak and Stefan Keimberger. The Volante car did close up on Stefan for a bit, and then I think there was probably a bit of a lockup or something because the gap did open up quite a bit. Also checking in on a few people. Liam Mengen in the North-South car. Not having the race I think he wanted, but now that the line is starting to wear in, I think these harder compound tires will start to benefit him, and hopefully he can catch up to Mac Shepard, who's a little ways out in front. Fred Bodden has been keeping pretty close to Scott Davison for quite a few laps here. As Scott pitted, he ended up in 4th place, and Davison has not been able to catch up to the top 3 quite yet, but if Nick Bracky and Carpenter decide to start racing each other, that could be something that develops, and so we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. Speaking of Scott Davison, showing a ton of speed, but he's on the harder compound now. I don't know if he's going to be able to catch up to Nick Bracky and Sam Carpenter, and you just saw those two out of frame going up Eau Rouge and through Radion. There is potential there. Scott running pretty quick. Let's take a look at the times. Davison, his fastest lap is a 1:46 and a 1:46.8. Believe it or not, faster than his teammate, Craig Baxter. We've seen that time and time again where Davison will steal the extra point from Baxter. Mostly just to annoy him, which I think is absolutely hilarious.
Looking back at two Sabre racing cars, already Sam Carpenter, like the lap after he got passed by Craig Baxter, he fell a second and a half already. So I'm not sure if he thought in his head, there's no point battling with Craig Baxter and just, kind of slot further behind just to take care of his teammate. They're kind of holding a gap down to 2 seconds now. But, Craig Baxter was completely bolted in that lap. Don't know if either the Sabre racing cars has anything to reply.
But it looks like Carpenter is matching the pace fairly well. Definitely still a little bit off. It's about a half a second off on that lap alone. So I'm not sure if Carpenter's going to be able to catch Baxter. We'll have to see, though. I mean, we've seen stranger things happen, and it looks like Nick Bracky has also backed off a little bit, giving Carpenter some room to concentrate. These guys are in comms, and I should also mention, for those who would like to race, we do have a comm channel open. It's an open comm channel for anybody who's in the race. So you're more than welcome, if you decide to race, to hop in there and hang out with the guys. There are notifications that go out via voice. If there's a problem on the track or someone crashes or something, then you can let them know. Or if someone decides to, if there's a pass that could happen, you can let them know, hey, I'm on the inside, or something along those lines. So there's a lot of camaraderie between the racers here. We saw a couple of people pop in and say hi, hey, I'm racing, new here, or whatever's going on. And I think that's awesome. That's the great thing about this particular league is everybody's fairly open. If you're having setup troubles, you can let them know what's going on, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction at least, or give you some pointers. They're not going to do the work for you. This is a competitive league, but they'll help you at least figure it out and maybe try something to get you in the right direction.
I think Nick Bracke, has already fallen behind his teammate. I don't know if those medium tires will last until the end. He might have to do a second stop. He's showing signs of locking up and sliding around. So I don't know if he wants to slow down and take care of his tires. I don't think the gap between him and Scott Davison is big enough to do that. He might need to do the second stop. It might be within his strategy, but to have to forfeit. Pretty much have to forfeit a podium place to do that. No sign at all of Sam Carpenter closing the gap on Baxter. I think he knows he has 2 laps older tyres. The battle might already be lost here. So battle for third could well be between Scott Davison and Fred Borden if he feels like he can close in. Still 10 laps to go.
Taking a look at the race for 10th. Stefan Kienberger has been slightly under attack by Jurka Slovenak, but the Volante car has been kind of hounding Kienberger pretty much for most of the race. And that DRS, look at that closing speed on DRS. We're watching from behind on Stefan Kienberger's car. This is for points, and I believe Kienberger has not scored points this season. And you can see that Kienberger has a little bit of a lockup there, as well as Slovenak actually sliding around just a little bit. So he doesn't have quite the grip, it seems, that he should have. But a lot of that may come down to just being a little bit newer to the league and maybe not quite used to the car. But he's definitely showing a lot of speed, and this is good to see from Jurka Slovenak. We've seen him race a few times this season and showing some improvement here, but a definitely solid chance to get into the points for Slovenak as we start to move into the final parts of this Belgian Grand Prix. Now let's keep an eye on that, as it looks like Fred Bawden starting to close up on Scott Davison. I didn't really expect that. You can see them just going out of the screen there.
I think Nick Bracke did make his second stop just as he was speaking about the battle at the back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there was signs that his medium tires were past their best. I think he made the decision very quickly to switch to a set of softs to go to the end. And he's right in the back of Max Shepard, so 5th place is up for grabs for him.
And Bracke is... we've seen some of the telemetry data from Nick Bracke, and for some reason he has some very high tire wear. He kind of always has. Hasn't been able to really point down why he does. I know he's a bit of an aggressive driver when it comes to just the way he attacks the track. So there might be a little bit of that, and obviously wheel input and things like that do come into effect over the longevity of any race, really. But he does get a little aggressive sometimes, and that can hurt the tires quite a bit. And we talk a lot about the tires here. Oh, wait a minute. We could have a chance. No, there's a second stop for Max Shepard, so Nick Bracke slots himself into 5th place. Oh, all right. So there is some two-stop strategy going on.
Yeah. Nick Brackey definitely not the only ones. Max Shepard choosing for a two-stop strategy. Liam Mangan, who is currently in 7th, just coming into this is his very first stop. So he's managed to eke out 22 laps.
Liam Mangan did.
23 laps. Yeah, Liam Mangan, 23 laps on this set of hard tires. Very impressive from him, considering you're starting further back.
That is massively impressive.
Yeah, he might lose 7th place to Philip Schiff.
Yeah, he does.
But he'll have fresh softs to go to the end, so he might catch him right until the end.
Okay, we'll have to see. The racing starting to brew here in the final laps of the Belgian Grand Prix. Want to welcome in everyone. I just took a look at chat. Fantastic to see you all. Bloodwolf, I see you in the chat. You were asking about a GT4 league. There is one, I think, on a different simulator, but I would have to double check. You know what? For more info, you can actually find out everything on apexonlineracing.com. Check out the forums. Join up if you haven't yet, and have a look around. If you would like to race in this setup, of course, you're more than welcome. There is no qualifying procedure or anything like that. You just jump in and have a little bit of fun. Lots of past broadcasts. If you guys want to check that out after this race. And, sir, I can see you in the chat as well. There are interviews with the podium drivers. So, yes, welcome in. And I see Bloodwolf talking about the VEC. Yeah, that's actually one I used to race in back in the day. Back when the VEC was in its infancy. It was it still is fantastic. In fact, for those wondering, there is an endurance series in the works. We had one scheduled at one point, and unfortunately that kind of fell apart. And so I've actually taken over the mantle of getting that set up, and Nino, you know a little bit about that. You know a little more details than we can share just yet, but to kind of give a little bit of an update on that, and Nino, I haven't been able to fill you in on this part yet. We're basically waiting for certain things to fall into place, and we have a little bit of testing to do before we want to announce. And I want to make sure everything is good to go before we announce, but we are looking to get that started here in the next few months. So stay tuned. It's shaping up to be something quite spectacular, I think. Head to the front of the field. Someone said Wowzers Baxter is quick. Yes, he is. He's opened up quite the gap between him and second place. Just over 4 seconds over Sam Carpenter. I think Sam has decided to back off and make sure he can get to the end of the race. A second place for him would be good. Keep him in the hunt. But Nino, you mentioned before that if Sam can't get a win either at this race or in the United States, Baxter will pretty much wrap up the championship.
It's Scott that needed to win.
Oh, it was Scott. I'm sorry.
Scott Davison, yes. So pretty much Scott needed this win to keep the championship going. It doesn't look like it's going to happen.
We had a bit of a race between Liam Mangan and Philip Schiff. Let's see if I can grab that replay real quick. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to. Here we are.
I think Philip Schiff just going wide there.
He went way, way wide. Yeah, ended up in the grass. And so, believe it or not, the best way to combat that, just keep going to the outside and use the grip on the asphalt there to get yourself around the corner and not lose so much time. It looks like Schiff is having other issues as well. Got way sideways coming out of the bus stop, and Liam Mangan will slot himself into 7th place, helping out his points battle. Checking in on Fred Bawden, sitting in 4th place. Last time out, he finished in 3rd. Last time he was out, I should say. He didn't make the last race, unfortunately. But a fantastic run there for Fred. But Davison looks like he has his number there. So only a few laps to go, about 7 laps. And we're starting to see those early pit callers start to, skittle around a little bit. They're getting a little sideways.
Definitely reaching the limit on these hard tires. I think the one battle we're looking for the most maybe is Fred Borden and Scott Davison for third place. I think Scott Davison came in for his set of hard tires earlier, so he has more age on his tires than Fred Borden does. Borden looks more confident at the moment. He is very slowly closing the gap. You would have to close it a bit more. You have to find a few more temps per lap to see if he can maybe get into DRS range by the end. He has 5 laps to go.
To kind of catch up on chat a little bit, Bloodwolf saying that he has problems with Race Room. Race Room, if I'm not mistaken, was built around rFactor 1. So rFactor 2 is a little, believe it or not, quite a bit easier to run than the first version. So I mean, it's on sale right now. Give it a try at least and see how it works. And if anything, you'll have it. It's 50% off on the Steam store right now, so please feel free to check it out. Ross James asking if Craig Baxter is going to run in the F1 esports leagues. No, he will not. He's actually, I've actually asked him before if he was going to give a run to it, and he actually is not a big fan of the F1 games, the official games by Codemasters. It's not that he thinks they're bad. It's just that he prefers the much more realistic approach that rFactor 2 offers. So he runs here, and he helps actually officiate and run the league too. So there is no favoritism. Don't get me wrong. We're actually really hard on Craig when he does make a mistake, and unfortunately for us, that's pretty rare. Russ James, I think this is the most competitive race league in rFactor 2. Well, I mean, when you look at the points, and you can look at all of the points and statistics on ApexOnlineRacing.com in the rFactor section, if you look at the points, I think he's not wrong, at least when it comes to the middle of the pack, Nino.
Yeah, you're definitely seeing most of the battles in the middle of the pack. I think skill gap in that section is by far the closest. And we've definitely seen in the previous races various amounts of battles that most of them clean. Some of them obviously have some of them have ended in quite controversial fashion. So
a bit of a kerfuffle here and there, but you expect that. The racers they race hard, but hard racing does result sometimes in some mistakes, and that does happen from time to time. So we're not perfect. As taking a look at Scott Davison, he's got Fred Borden behind him, and I don't. Will Borden catch Davison? I mean, they only have 5 laps to go. I don't know. Davison does run wide there, doesn't gain any time, so there shouldn't be a penalty or anything. But it looks like Davison might be having a little bit of tire wear issue, whereas Borden is on the fresher hard compounds. There might be a run here for third place.
Definitely good. I did discuss this earlier. He does need to gain a few more temps per lap if he is to close himself up by the end of the race. He is running out of time though, so he needs to eke out just a bit more, maybe to get into DRS range, and he might have an opportunity.
Ross James asking if he's going to do ESL. I don't believe so. But yeah. Oh, rFactor 2 is only 14 euros. What is that? $20?
About $20, yeah.
That's worth it. Honestly, seriously, no joke. I mean, rFactor 2 does have its issues. Don't get me wrong, but those issues pale in comparison to the realism that can be achieved in leagues like this, and other leagues. VEC uses it. A few other leagues use rFactor 2, and honestly, even the official mods are fantastic. The Indoor Racers mod, absolutely fantastic. And you'll have to search around a little bit, but you can find leagues where you can race against real people in my opinion, ultra realism, especially if you have a steering wheel and you're all set up, then I suggest giving it a go. I mean, it's going to take you a season, a little while, definitely a little while, to get used to the mod and how it works and everything.
Philip Schiff, unfortunately, blowing his engine.
Oh, no.
Right at the end there. That's...
Let's have a look.
That's unfortunate for him. He was running in 8th place.
Looks like he blew it coming out of the chicane, it seems.
Yeah, that's unfortunately. Yeah, you do have to take good care of your engine throughout the race. There are definitely
there's
ways to destroy it.
There's some pitfalls. You got to be careful, and you can actually go into higher boosts if you have that programmed in, to your steering wheel or whatever you're using. And if you run it for too long, you can blow the engine or blow a transmission. We've seen it a couple of times this season where drivers get a little bit anxious and trying to catch up or whatever, and they run the quali boost for too long. Quali boost usually lasts about a lap, and that's it. You're done. The engine will blow itself. But if you don't go into quali boost, it'll last the whole race fairly easily. The better question is, if you're over revving a lot or things along those lines, it'll blow the engine. Usually there's fire spitting out of it too, but not this time, unfortunately for us.
Battle between Fred Borden and Scott Davison is getting closer, gradually closer. I think Scott Davison is, getting a bit more lockups and sliding around with those tires.
Philip Schiff actually in the chat said that the gearbox wouldn't shift.
Oh,
that's really weird. I mean, I'm curious, was the gearbox blown or did you have a steering wheel issue? That's very odd.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
I mean, it can happen. I've seen it happen here, but here in this league, I should say. But it's pretty rare. So very odd. That said, we got quite the battle brewing here for third. Only a couple laps to go. Scott Davison trying to hold on, but Fred Borden is catching at an alarming rate.
Very alarming rate. 2 laps to go. Fred Borden really needs to. He's got himself in that DRS range. Just at the right time, I think. So he's got 2 laps, and you can see another lockup from Scott Davison. He's getting pretty nervous here. He knows Fred Borden will be right at the back of him now. Heading into the Kemmel Straights. He'll have DRS open. He'll have a significant slipstream. Can he make the move down here? Let's see. Might be a bit too far back.
It's possible. Bloodwolf has purchased rFactor 2. That is fantastic. If you would like to join us, you're more than welcome. Like I said, check us out at ApexOnlineRacing.com. You do have to sign up for the league. And like I said, you're more than welcome. You got 2 weeks to practice if you want to join us for a race. And all the details are on the website once you join up and confirmed and everything. You'll be able to join the server and get the mod and everything. So you can't do that now. We are in the middle of a race and the server is locked. So feel free. Check us out. I'd be more than happy to have it. Davison going a little bit too far inside. Lost a lot of time to Borden. There's definitely a race brewing here for sure. Those hard compounds for Davison starting to go away from him. The gap closing up, less than half a second. We have about a lap and a quarter to go as they make their way through Blanchimont. It will be Fred Borden trying to close up the gap here.
He might have a go into the chicane if he's brave.
If he's brave, I don't think it's a good idea, but he's going to have to cut to the inside a little bit for some downforce. Davison does lock up the rears. A lot of time caught up here by Fred Borden. I think you were right on the Kemmel Straight prediction. There could be a potential pass here as DRS is open for Fred Borden. We'll stay on board. Davison locking up the rears again. That might be why he's sliding around the rears quite a bit, as those tires might be fried. Pretty much a cast iron frying pan in the middle of a desert. Once they start to go away, there's not much there, as Fred Borden has one more lap to do it. Down the Kemmel Straight they go. You can see Davison trying to block the inside. He's going to force Fred Borden around the outside. There's potential here. It could happen. Bodden elects not to go for it. He's going to try to cut to the inside here. I don't think it's a good idea as he'll be on the outside. But now he's all over the back of Scott Davison. Trying for a pass here. Davison defends. Fantastic defending. This is absolutely awesome racing, but
Around the
Bodden
outside.
around the outside. He manages to make it stick. They're still there. Forces to the outside because of the off-camber-ness of that corner. Now they're side by side down the straight. You can see Nick Brackey just having the best view. In fact, let's go on board with Nick Brackey. He's going to have the best view of this race, possibly challenging for some more points here as the battle for third rages on here for the final lap. I kind of don't want to cut to the lead because you know that Baxter will be crossing the start-finish line here pretty quickly. Nick Brackey looking to the inside now. Oh my God. Let's just cut to that. Craig Baxter
on the final chicane.
The chicane. He will take the win, a commanding win here for Craig Baxter. Let's take a look back here for the battle for third. Fred Bodden all over Scott Davison. He might make a chance here. Cuts to the inside. Davison trying to cut him off. It's going to be tight here coming through the chicane. Nick Brackey might look to the inside. He does not. Now it's a drag race down to the start-finish line. Scott Davison will secure third place. Oh my God, that was thrilling. And not a touch. There was no touching at all.
Man.
Oh my goodness.
That was a fantastic battle between that for third place right at the end there. Kind of almost overshadowing the fact that Craig Baxter has won the race and with that secures the Drivers' Championship for Season 3 for AOR rFactor 2. Yet another victory. That is 8 out of 9, if I recall correctly, for Craig Baxter. Yep,
you are correct. We do have a race here for 8th place. Jurka Slovenak on Julian Klingelmar. There could be. Oh, he dives to the inside. There's a touch. Not too bad, though. He had to go to the inside. A touch again. Now, that could be just the lag. I am in California. The server in Europe. But the Volante does lock it up the rears. Now it's a drag race. A massive exit for Julian Klingelmar. Julian will not be able to secure 8th place. And Jurka Slovenak, a fantastic run. Oh, my goodness. There was some touching there, though. I don't think penalties will be doled out, though, as Stefan Keimberger doing a fat burnout. He's just got to cross the line, and he does. Keimberger does manage to score some points, but your winner, Craig Baxter, well run. He did have some challenge there in the middle of the race, making sure that he was able to make it to the end, but he does it on one stop. And Sam Carpenter had to finish out that race on one stop as well. Carpenter does escape out. Baxter usually does some runs along the front straight with some donuts, so we'll see if we get a show here as Scott Davison has actually caught up to him. Oh, what a fantastic race at the end there, though, for third place. Fred Bodden just sticking his nose in. He just couldn't quite finish it out.
Yeah, impressive battles throughout. Just another word on Craig Baxter. Yeah, he's pretty much on his own, as we've seen throughout the season. He's been consistent throughout, performing fantastically in all the tracks. Just that one blip in Turkey, which pretty much wasn't really his fault.
And the donut show begins.
There's the donut show. Oh, there he goes. Kind of blocked there by the wall there, but that is your Season 3 champion, Craig Baxter.
Let's make everyone dizzy. On board here. Kaz, I did see your messages deleted. I'm not exactly sure why that happened. I'm sorry about that, sir. But good banter by everyone. Liam Mangan coming in, congratulating his friend, Craig Baxter, the season winner. And unfortunately, there is no podium with which to pose in front of. And so we got donuts galore. Oh, they managed to not touch. It looks like Mangan will join in. That's a screenshot and a half if I've ever seen one. The North-South joining in with his friend Craig Baxter, your Season 3 champion. Now, we should mention that does not negate the last 3 races of this season. Still plenty to fight for. Basically, every position all the way down to 10th place still up for grabs. And it looks like the engines are smoking. They're going to blow these things up. Baxter. Yeah, he's excited. All right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a little bit of a break, but when we come back, we'll have your Season 3 champion, Craig Baxter, in for driver interviews, as well as your second and third place finishers, Sam Carpenter and Scott Davison. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we are back. Took a little bit of a breather, tried to catch our breath after an exciting race. We do have a couple of the drivers in the green room, if you will. Nino, seriously though, what a fantastic race.
Yeah, that was a very decent race, very close battling there. We've seen various tire strategies between the top drivers and throughout the field, to be honest. And even throughout all that, and even though Craig this time took a very risky strategy there, he still came out on top. He took the risk and he reaped the massive reward there.
Let's
That
let's go ahead and get Scott Davison in here. Hopefully he's not mid sentence. We'll see. Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fine.
That was quite the race.
Yeah, it wasn't my strongest race. It didn't go according to plan, but I got a podium in the
We thought Fred Bodden would have you there towards the end, but some good defensive driving helped save third place for you. When did you realize that Fred might be able to catch you?
Honestly, end of the first stint, I knew that Fred would be on my pace, if not catch. Because in the first stint, my plan was to not push and save my tyres, but Nick, helping his teammate, was right behind me, so I had to push a lot to stay ahead, and that destroyed my tyres. Then I went on the hards, and I had to push a lot to try and catch up, which didn't work. So in the end, I think I had a 30% tyre wear differential to Fred. So I had absolutely no grip on the last lap, so I was a bit over the limit defending, but I managed to keep him behind.
That was the tire strategy. We saw multiple people go medium, then hard. We saw some go soft, then medium. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, this track is so weird when it comes to tires. You know, if you don't have the setup, you got to go with the harder compound, which is still slower. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I started with mediums, went to hards, and I was on the limit because I was pushing. Craig went soft hard, he was fine because he was. But Nick made a mistake that he went to medium to do a two-stop when he should have went to hards and he would have easily one-stopped. So that helped me keep him behind. And then my race overall on that was just keeping Fred behind. As yeah, it was kind of like Vettel and Hamilton in 2017 at Spa, just not for first and second.
Fair enough. I mean, do you have any closing thoughts? You unfortunately you needed to win here, as far as points go.
I
But third place does slot you back, so now you're under threat from Sam Carpenter. Thoughts moving into the United States?
Yeah, well, Craig was always going to win. Let's be real. Like no one had a chance against him. So yeah, he won. That was to be expected. So well done him. Sam, I don't remember the gap. I think it's around 20 points, maybe just under now. But yeah, it'll be close. It always is with me and Sam. We're evenly matched, which is sometimes a problem. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Well, beware the rattling sabers is what I would have to say to that. Nino, you got anything?
Pretty much only one from the start. Was there any really anything? Because obviously we saw you pretty much in that train with Craig, Sam, and Nick. Was there any attempt to try and get ahead of Sam, or was tire strategy the main thought throughout?
No, I didn't really have any chance to get ahead of Sam because he was on a softer compound, even though his tire wear was quite good for one. um, yeah, I didn't have the grip to get near him, and he always had slipstream and DRS, so yeah, that kind of hurt my race, but it's fine. It was a fun race nonetheless.
Well, Scott, congratulations. A fantastic race. I'll go ahead and move you up, but well done.
Thank you.
It was actually kind of interesting the way the tire strategy worked out. Huh.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. Let's see what Sam Carpenter has to say. Mr. Carpenter.
Hello.
How you doing? Are you boiling yet?
Yeah. About 34 degrees, something like that. About 90.
Easy. Easy. Well done. Second place for you. Not a bad run.
No, Scott was the guy I was aiming at and managed to beat him. So yeah, I'm very happy overall.
Your tire strategy. Spa brings out some weird ones. Your thoughts on the ones you decided to go with?
Yeah. Well, all the way through practice, we thought it's going to be one stop, whether you go medium. I don't know. It's all over the place depending on who you are, how bad you are on the tires. I'm bad, so it might have been a medium hard for me. Then I realized that the soft hard was on. And then once after everything happened, the server restarted, the railroad was a little bit lower, so I thought soft hard might not be on, but I tried it anyway. And if it wasn't going to work, I could just pit at the end like Nick did, and still be on the guys behind. So soft hard eventually worked, and I didn't really need to worry about Scott behind because he didn't quite have the pace. And I think that was mainly down to Nick doing his job very, very well in the first stint and keeping him behind.
All right, so let's talk points. You are now definitely in a challenge for second place in points, breaking up the Defiance dynasty, if you will. Your thoughts moving into the United States? If I remember right, the Austin track is not so much your favorite.
No, it's it's got every type of corner there. Really, it's a very long track, and at least some of them are going to be ones that I hate. It's not one of my favorites. Scott, if I recall, is quite good there. I don't really remember. It's a bit of an unknown. So especially in this car as well, which is very different to anything we've driven there before.
Sure.
So and it's a tough track as well. So any one of us could spin out. But yeah, it's not. I just need to keep beating Scott, keep beating him this whole season, and hopefully get a few cars between in the remaining rounds. But Defiance, Craig, everyone, they're champions. So I mean, there's nothing you can really do about the title, either of them anymore.
Fair enough, Nino. Go for it, man.
Yeah. When Craig came into the pits, you came out ahead of him. Was that a surprise? Or did you expect him to? Did you expect him to go further in, kind of eke out 2 more laps on his old tires and then just shoot past you? Did you surprise that he decided to attack you so quickly?
Well, I knew that. I mean, Craig's always rapid as soon as he comes out of the pit stop, and I knew I'd probably be ahead. I was kind of expecting a little bit more, to be honest, because he was saying with Scott that both of them were a little bit slidey on the in-laps with the soft tires. But I came out ahead, and once he got the DRS on me, I just didn't fight it. And I told Nick not to fight it as well, but he decided to. Yeah, that was the best thing to do at that point and just let him go, because one, you can kind of tag along with DRS, and if that doesn't work, you don't have the pace to overtake them anyway. So yeah, I'm happy with just keeping ahead of Scott really and keeping better tyre wear over him.
Oh, good to hear, man. All right, so you got your work cut out for you, and I guess we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'll move you up, man. No worries. Let's get our Season 3 champion in here. What do you say?
Yeah.
Mr. Baxter.
Hello.
Hello. Season 3 champion, I believe we can name you now.
Yep, that sounds good.
I mean, you did enough donuts.
Yeah, I made sure of that.
Did you blow the engine?
No, still going.
You didn't do enough then.
True.
All right, let's talk about Spa. Your pit strategy landed you, what, third, fourth, I think? Did that make you nervous?
Yeah. The issue with the server restarting, the real road was a little bit lower than what it would have been, so it made the one stop on the softs a little bit more tricky. So I just had to sort of manage the pace in the first stint, come out behind, and I knew I would have had the pace advantage anyway because I was holding back quite a lot in the first stint. So I just let it rip for a couple of laps, got past Sam, and then from then just basically managed the race.
It didn't seem like you were too keen on running away with the lead like you kind of normally do. I mean, did you end up having to save the tire there in the middle of the race a little bit, or was that just kind of the way it worked out?
You mean on the softs or hards?
On the hards.
On the hards, I just got past Sam, got out of DRS, and sort of just coasted just to make sure my tires would last. Probably overestimated how much tire wear I was gonna have. So I went into autopilot mode, and then at the end of the race, I realized I had far too much fuel, far too much tires left. So last lap, I decided to go for a relatively quick one and set, I think, my fastest lap by over half a second. So there was a lot of pace there, but there was just no need. There was no need to risk it when I didn't have to push.
Nino, got anything?
Not really anything else other than how does Season 3 champion sound like? You pretty much perfect throughout other than Turkey. Is the plan to win the last 3 just to wrap up?
I'll have a think about it. I might start back a grid in Kota. I really like the track, so and it's good for overtaking. So I might start back a grid. Some people will be happy to hear that. Especially Scott, he loves Kota as well. So maybe give him a chance at a second win. He'll need it as well. Fighting Sam, it's pretty close in the championship. But yeah, Season 3 champion sounds good. People in the chat obviously not too happy. But message to them: love conquers all. So yeah, no need to hate on it. People don't like seeing me win, and come in and beat me. I'm all here for the challenge. I love the challenge, and yeah, bring it on.
We do have a potential newcomer because of the stream and watching you guys run. Bloodwolf decided to actually buy rFactor 2. Sounds like he's got a little experience as far as racing goes in general. So we might have a newcomer come to the United States, which would be good. Obviously, adding to the field is always a fantastic thing. But the car itself, though, I mean, it seemed like your teammate had some issues with rear lockup. I assume brake adjustments were needed throughout the race. Did you have to do any of that stuff while you're trying to run?
This was one of the first races. I actually moved it rearwards after because I started getting front locking, not rear locking. I brake a lot different. The only person that really brakes similar to me in this car is Sam. I heavy trail brake a lot as well, so I normally lock the fronts. So I moved it rear to sort of compensate. But Scott literally is the polar opposite from me when it comes to setup in the car. So this track, I'm not surprised he struggled, because this was probably the most front end I've given the car the entire season. It was over rotating mid corner, and for him that was probably a nightmare.
Well, we'll have to see as we move to the United States. I think if you end up in the back of the grid somehow, I don't know how the heck you would do that. It would definitely make for some interesting racing for sure. But yeah, so we got a couple of weeks to figure that out. Craig, congratulations. I'll move you out of the chat, sir.
Thank you.
Nino, man, what a week.
Yep.
That right there is how you wrap up an AOR race. Good Lord.
Yeah, most definitely. I know most of these guys been racing in pretty much searing heat. I know, like in the UK, it's a hot day today, so they'll be pretty much exhausted. So they'll be going out to get some fresh air, and I know Craig will be celebrating the most. But throughout the fields, great battles, and we do have a solid fight for second place in the championship now.
Yeah,
Scott Davis and Sam Carpenter. We've seen them all season with the best battles, and I can't wait to see 3 more races of that.
I'm pasting a link in the chat if you guys want to take a look at the point standings. The Belgian Grand Prix has not been added in, but you get the idea as to what we're talking about. And of course, feel free to sign up for the forums, and if you want to race with us, we would be more than happy to have you join us for at least the last 3 races here at Season 3 of the ApexOnlineRacing.com. rFactor 2 Formula 1 Championship. And, of course, stay tuned. There is endurance news on the horizon. Hopefully we'll be able to announce that very soon. But for Nino and myself, Curtis Kenyon, it's been fantastic. And we will see you in a couple of weeks for the United States Grand Prix. Have a good weekend.
See you later, guys.